It's a part of the mind that's just aware. No matter what else comes into the mind, whether it's greed, anger, delusion, despair, depression, regret, fear, that's just part of the mind. There's also another part that's just aware of these things. It tends to get blocked out when strong emotions come into the mind. But still, it's always there. That's the part of the mind that the hum on the refrigerator is always there in the background. Or maybe a better analogy would be the hum of the Big Bang that's still detectable all the time. And one of the tricks of the meditation is learning to get in touch with that. Not to regard it as an unusual state of mind, but have it as the background state of mind. It's kind of a shift of your center of gravity. Because for the most part we tend to live in our emotions. We live in our creations, the little worlds we create for ourselves. And as the Buddha pointed out, there's a lot of suffering there. All these worlds require effort to keep them going. They have to feed off of something. When the Buddha says that becoming is conditioned by clinging, the word clinging can also mean feeding, or the act of taking sustenance. And the sustenance is the passion of the desire. So once there's the desire, we get into it, take it as far as we can go. There's always a kind of an act of feeding going on. And that's stressful. So what we've got to learn how to do is get out of those little worlds that we create for ourselves, because otherwise you can create huge emotional storms that can blow you away. People talk about sitting and meditating and being blown away by their emotions to the point where they can't even sit anymore. Well, if you actually look at the wind from the outside, there's no wind blowing, blowing them off the seat. But it's these storms that get blown up in the mind, and they put themselves in the storms. And of course they're going to get blown around. But it's always important to remember that there's an awareness that surrounds the storms. And if you can place your center of gravity in the awareness around the storms, then you don't get blown away. And it's not that difficult to get out of the storms. You can observe them as they're happening. The trick is changing your center of gravity and keeping it changed. And one of the problems is the impatience that blows up as a separate storm. You get impatient. When are these storms going to go away? And then you get place yourself, instead of getting, you place yourself in that second storm, the impatient storm. And that can blow you away as well. Or the boredom. A lot of these secondary storms are the ones that hit a lot of meditators. So you have to watch out for them. You have to realize there's a space around those storms as well, too. You have to learn how to watch those from the outside. So much of the commentary going on in the mind is just this sort of thing. You pull yourself out of the storms that have to do with events from the past or events in the future. But then you let yourself get wound up in storms of the present. So when these things come up, whether regret or impatience or whatever, just watch them too. And they may seem awfully powerful and awfully real, but One of the tricks is to question the reality, but the second was simply realize, okay, there is a reality to these things, but it's created, it's false, it's artificial. It's something you're doing right now. And you may not even be aware of what you're doing. Back when I was younger, I used to like to write fiction. And basically what a fiction writer does is he or she gets into a little mental world. And the more real you can make that world to yourself, the better the story when it comes out. And one of the things I noticed was sometimes you create a character and the character surprises you. The more real the character becomes in your mind, the more it can start doing unexpected things. And when that happens, then you start thinking, well, maybe this is really an independent character. But it's actually it's a figment of your own imagination. And the reason that these characters can surprise you is the same reason why you get surprised by things that come into the mind in normal world-creating activities or world-creating thoughts. In other words, we're so oblivious to what we're doing that it can actually surprise us. And that's when these thoughts begin to seem very real and have an independent existence. What simply happened is that the part of your mind is creating them is behind a wall from the other part, the part that's watching them. That's why they can take unexpected turns. This is why we have to get the mind really, really quiet, so we can get closer and closer to that part of the mind that just observes. And also so we can get clear about where these fabrications are coming from. Because when you get to the point where they offer no surprise, that's when you start getting disenchanted with them. You see them for all their artificiality. And that's when you begin to be able to pull yourself out more and more consistently. So whatever storms come brewing up in the mind, remember, it's just an event in your awareness. And there's an awareness that surrounds these things. And you want to learn how to give more reality to that awareness, give more weight to that awareness than you do to the storms. If you're going to identify with